Hi, I'm Mark Dudley, and this is In the Basement. It's the name. This is the inaugural episode of this show. I've been planning on doing this show for a while. I just wanted to find something to start it off with that was going to be informative, entertaining, and my main thing is to give as much information in the comics, manga, illustration, and animation space as I can give. So, without further ado, I want to have my guests introduce themselves, starting with the gentleman on the video.
Cool. Yeah, my name is Jose Fari. Everyone knows me by Tony. I'm the chief operating officer for NAMI COMI. We're a new platform for comics and manga creators to self-publish their works and help them basically monetize and get out there. And I'm joined by Amanda. Amanda, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Amanda, and I work for NAMI COMI as an illustrator for the studio department. I do lots of art and other things behind the scenes for NAMI COMI.
Outstanding. Well, again, I have been perusing NAMI COMI since Amanda had told me about it, and as I was telling Amanda before, what I really like about you guys' site, there's multiple things, but I like the look and I like the freshness of it, first and foremost. So I was wondering if you guys could give us a bit of an overview. First of all, give us an overview of what NAMI COMI is, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so we're essentially a platform, or I should say probably an ecosystem for creators of and fans of comics and manga. We're essentially pretty much here to amplify the success that creators can have when self-publishing their works. And we also want to make sure that the readers have like all the features that they would want in a reading platform. We are ourselves fans of comics and manga. We've been in the animated games industry for over 2 decades, and so we saw there was a little bit of a gap across all the different new platforms that have kind of been around for a while, in terms of like what is being provided to the creators, and what is also being provided to the fans. So we thought like, there was a good time for us to kind of try to step in and help fix or gap or bridge that gap, essentially. And yeah, provide creators with the tools they need and provide the readers with that closeness that I think a lot of us want to have for the creators. I think we want to know who the people creating those works are. We want to talk to them. We want to kind of discuss their original characters or their settings and their stories. And we wanted to kind of just like basically put that all under one roof. Make it super easy for creators to get in touch with their fans, but also for fans to get in touch with the creators and have this kind of super cool ecosystem going where you basically can virtue signal like, whatever you're into or whoever you want to kind of be representing. So yeah, we have a lot of kind of stuff planned on that, but for the most part, we're basically just a kind of like an ecosystem or a platform for this medium, essentially.
Sure. Well, I noticed that in platforms like Webtoons, Tapas, and I actually do a webcomic myself, and that's hosted on Comic Fury. But I noticed that you guys with your platform, you guys do what I think is your platform feels to me a little bit more, like you said, of an ecosystem, more so than just a platform, a community and whatnot. Because I noticed you guys talk about have a lot of social stuff and like news and stuff on there. What made you guys decide to go that route?
For the social specifically, we thought so. A lot of the current issues with self-publishing platforms right now is that any creator that goes onto them is essentially left at their mercy of the editorial team.
Right.
So if you self-publish, like you're essentially begging your editorial, like the editorial team of that platform, for a feature.
Right.
And we thought that we don't really think it should be that way. Like, we think that if the story is great and the art is great, and the premise sounds good, everyone should have like an equal opportunity. So like our homepage kind of plays a part on that, and all of the other features that we have also play a part in like very strong like user discoverability, right? Including the search. Like, I mean, in some of these platforms, you could search for a title like letter by letter, word by word, and sometimes it doesn't even come up. We think that's pretty ridiculous. So we wanted to kind of fix some of that.
Right.
The social element plays a part in that. So like the social feeds are essentially a way for creators to tell, their followers, the people who are following their work, like what they're working on, like share some kind of illustrations or some work in progress, and also allow the wider comic and manga community that's forming around NAMI COMI to also find those creators. So it's a bit of a way of like, here's how you can keep up with me and my work and what I'm up to. But I'm also doing this because there is a chance that more people that might be into what I'm doing will find me this way as well. On the news side of things, we thought it was a great idea to kind of just bringing it back into that kind of ecosystem, to essentially portray news that might be of interest to them. Like right now, we're doing a bit of anime, a bit of manga, light novels, and the likes, but we want to kind of expand a little bit more into the the more indie comic space as well.
Right. And it definitely needs it.
Yeah. And in some part, like we kind of already covered some of those, but it hasn't been into a lot of detail. And I think the challenges are being, where do we find like the content for this news? It's very segregated right now, and it's all over the place. And
once you get into that comic space, you're going to find, one thing about the manga and anime spaces that I personally find is that, the spaces are a lot more curated, and there's a lot more camaraderie in those spaces. The indie space, unless you're dealing with somebody like unless you're dealing with somebody like Anita Lanning or somebody like that from Indie Comics Network, you're really not going to find a ton of support for the indie spaces. I like to shout Nita out. Nita does a really good job for an Indie Comics Network. But beyond that, you don't see a lot of guys outside of that spend more time being like the grandfather, like get off my lawn, and they're like, comics is dying, blah, 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 or they spend their time trying to figure out how to get the next Kickstarter or whatever, right? So what I noticed is the webcomics distribution model isn't as strong in the indie comic space, and I think that they're missing out because of that, So I mean, I'm hoping that, and again, that's one of the other reasons I want to do the interview with you guys, because again, I'm hoping that guys like you, I'm hoping that services like NAMI COMI can change that.
That's our hope. Yeah. We want to kind of to an impact in the way that people finding creators and consume their content and kind of get together around it as well. We feel
Sure.
it's quite segregated. We also feel that there is potentially some lessons that the kind of Western comic space can learn from the Eastern manga
Sure,
space.
I agree. I absolutely agree, especially in terms of what the thing that with indie comics is uniquely has that has that would benefit from that is what I think personally. But you know, that's just my take on it. I'd like you guys to talk a bit, as you talked about you guys having some history. I'd like you guys to get a little bit into each one of your histories as in terms of comics and manga, and you know how you got into it, and you know what you guys are doing in that space right now, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll start, I guess. So I've been watching anime and consuming manga since very early 2000s. I learned about Crunchyroll, I think, around 2009. I were also myself and my co-founder were in the fan subbing space as well, so we're fairly kind of acquainted with like getting into those niches and
Right.
understanding a little bit more about how it works. And then we got an opportunity to work with Crunchyroll in 2012, and so there was a lot of expansion into the anime and manga space from that side, merchandise, downstream rights, anything to do with IP and the likes. And then with that, there were also unique opportunities to be working with in the game space with the likes of Bandai Namco and Koei Tecmo and the like across a bunch of different games, which then brought opportunities for actual comics and the manga space as well. And at some point, we're fairly involved with some of the productions for anime that were part of the webtoon space, like the God of High School, for example, and similar. So it wasn't until 2020 that we started to see there was always a very big gap in the manga industry because there hasn't really been a service or anything similar that has been able to pretty much unify that segment in the kind of the same way that Crunchyroll unified the anime segment.
Sure.
Although now it's going super segregated with Netflix and Hulu and all the other ones. But then, with 2020 at the advent of the pandemic and everyone, a lot of people going into the comic space, that gap also in the Western side of things became very, very apparent. And it's pretty much obvious that the current business model for those services and those platforms don't really work in the best interest of the creators. And that's kind of what made us basically start as well, alongside all the other reasons that have been provided already. But we have like a good balance of previous experience that we could kind of tap into, and we're finding new things as we're working with creators across pretty much all over the world and in different languages, and some of them work with long strip, and some of them work with manga and comics, and it's been super interesting so far.
It's funny because people I talk to, using webtoons as the biggest example, people I talk to often they often are looking for like a formula, I guess, right? So they'll be like, oh, you got to cut your strip up and you got to do this and do that, with webtoons, whatever. And so what I appreciate is that, you guys service these different formats without, pushing people to have to do a particular thing in terms to get shown. So I definitely absolutely appreciate that.
We think that's a pretty silly, like, we understand why that format took root and became so big because everyone has a phone, and phones are, vertical devices. And so a long strip format makes absolute sense.
Sure.
Right? It's been pioneered in Korea, and like it works super, super well there. But we think that there is some limitations to long strip that you don't necessarily might have with like your normal traditional like page format. And so being able to have them both in the same house working seamlessly, regardless of, you could be reading a webtoon or a long strip right now and on NAMI COMI, and then like the next title that you get into could be a manga, and like that transition from one to the other is seamless. It's fairly seamless on the apps, and it will be even more seamless on the website after we introduce the reading direction animations that we still need to do. But yeah, that's the bottom line of that. Amanda, do you want to?
Yeah, Amanda, you want to jump in?
Sure. Did you want me to introduce myself real quick?
Again, absolutely.
All right. So I don't have as much history as Tony because I'm pretty fresh out of college, so I don't have as much experience. But I've been learning with NAMI COMI along the way, and it's been really fun. I've always been drawing since I was young, and always watching, reading comics, manga, anime stuff. And I knew that art was something that I wanted to do, so I've just been drawing, especially in middle school a lot because we got iPads. So I'd always be drawing with my finger.
Right.
I'd be stuck to that thing. And anime girls is like my favorite thing to draw. So I actually did the mascot for NAMI COMI because they reached out to me because they saw my character designs that I've done before.
Outstanding.
Yeah. That's my just short little verb, but yeah, I've always loved reading manga, especially with the iPad too, because I would read it in school too.
Oh, so you're one of those people, huh?
The teachers let me, so it was fine.
I tell you, TA. I saw something today that was kind of funny talking about kids in education. I kind of made me laugh a little bit, thinking about the differences in my day. I graduated from college in 1992, so I tell you something. Things were a lot different then. No internet. But so the thing is, so one thing also, you talked a bit. What I found interesting. I want to get back into NAMI COMI and some of the things you guys. If you can be candid, if you don't want to be, then we can move on to another line of questioning. But if you guys don't mind, I'd like you to talk a bit about some of the pros and cons. I can say more pros and cons. What do you think some of the things that and I don't like to use the word competition, but some of the things that other web comic services aren't doing, that you think in the future is something that you might incorporate into NAMI COMI? Or that need to be done, the necessity of them is more so the question.
You see, that's the thing. We don't, like, if we're being completely transparent, we don't really believe that what they're doing is worth replicating. I mean, for starters, we think that creators are being
let me clarify. What is it? So I guess what the question I'm asking is, what is it that you see that they're doing that you're like, we're not doing that, and in the future we're going to do something totally different than that? And again, if that's asking too much, then we can go back and do it different.
No, I think, look, it's written all over our website. I think we don't do originals. We don't think originals are the way forward. We think originals take advantage of creators. We don't like the idea that you're not giving away your IP because you're not transferring it is super misleading, right? Like whenever you sign an originals contract, you're literally saying, I am giving my distributions rights to you. That's essentially what's happening. So, and you will sign, the typical contract will be a 3-year contract where you're saying, during this time, the distribution rights sit completely with you and you being the platform, right? And then you can't do anything in there. Like if you finish, publishing your chapters or your episodes or whatever they're calling it these days, and then you can't publish it elsewhere. You cannot publish it elsewhere in another language. So you could have originally published in English. If someone translated your title, you can't publish it anywhere else, even though it's translated. You can't continue it. You can't do like another set of chapters or a season 2 or volume 2 or whatever they call it these days. And then whenever the end of the 3-year contract comes, there tends to be a clause in there that basically says we as in the platform can unilaterally renew the contract whether the creator likes it or not.
Yeah, that's funny because again, I don't know how deep you guys are into what I'm pretty sure, Tony, that you have you probably have a little bit more depth in this, because it's a little bit before the iPad time there, Amanda. Tokyo Pop. I don't know if you remember, but those guys, in terms of their physical original English language manga, they had a similar contract.
Mm-hmm.
So basically,
exactly.
Right, what you're saying is, and I absolutely agree, that original shouldn't mean exclusive.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
I definitely believe that 100%.
Right. So
I think, obviously it's against like their current originals model, right? Like
sure.
Right now they pay like an advance per chapter or per episode, and there will be a contract for X amount of chapters or episodes. And generally it tends to be around 50. And so let's say that, like, for argument's sake, let's say that the advance that they give you per chapter is $1,000. Right. So then for a 50 contract, that's $50,000, right?
Right.
That they're giving you, right? So you get that, and that's basically your licensing fee that they're paying you for the first 3 years on that contract. At the end of that contract, they can say, actually, we're renewing it again.
Right.
They can at that point say they're just renewing it. They might not necessarily want you to
creating
basically
new.
continue for
Right.
create anything new. So it, like, literally, even though they didn't acquire the IP, basically all the shots are with that platform. Right. And then the other thing is that they say, okay, we'll give you like a percentage of the revenue that because in order for you to unlock these chapters or whatever, you need to, like, users need to pay coins, or they need to pay ink, or they need to pay whatever currency they're
whatever digital currency or whatever digital currency. Right.
Exactly. And so they say, okay, look, we'll give you a percentage of that. The percentage of that's like 80-20. Or you say, okay, 80-20 doesn't sound bad. But yeah, it's 80-20. The 20% is for the creators, not for the platform. So they're taking 80% of the royalties after, and this is after they get their $50,000 back.
Look, this is that's crazy.
Yeah, so they basically say, okay, like, we pay you $50,000, we're gonna make this $50,000 back. After that, at any extra revenue that we get, it's gonna be 20% for you, 80% for us. I said, but why? Like, if you were like, and this happens for certain series, but it's not the vast majority of them, according to my knowledge. In that, some people will go in and pitch directly to the editors an idea that doesn't have any data behind it.
Right.
And for those situations, I'm like, cool. They're taking a risk. And you go and pitch to them, and like, they might be taking a risk in green lighting this, because it could do super well, or it could flop. But the other thing is that they, like, when that doesn't happen, they use their self-publishing branches as a pipeline for the originals. Like, all the data is there. Like, you know how popular it is, you know where it is popular, you know how many people are reading it weekly. And then at that point, you're just basically going to the creator, offering them a contract to make that an original, make changes to the story in a couple of places, and spruce up the art a little bit, and just basically put it out the door. And we just didn't think that sounded like a fair deal.
But let me ask you one more thing then, as far as that's concerned. I recently started in the physical space, obviously, right? Image comics type stuff, avatar comics, stuff like that, right? Uh, do you, and again, I don't know if this is the case, but now since you're explaining this to me, I'm wondering, are they publishing this stuff someplace else in the physical space too?
I know for
Sometimes,
like
yeah,
Lore
sometimes it
Olympus,
will.
they have a physical book because I saw it in the store.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
But that's like
For
the
some of them,
biggest
they will.
webtoon.
They
That's
call
good.
it unscrolled, and it's basically
Okay.
like just a print version of that.
Right.
But you have to have, you have to be really popular for that.
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
And
Oh,
obviously, the contract for that's slightly different.
right.
But they have like a vast majority of the printing costs themselves, so
Right.
you'll get like extra revenue from that. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's at
It just
most
seems
maybe
kind
70-30.
of draconian if they have that type. If they have basically, it seems draconian because they really. I don't care if you own the rights, air quotes. You really don't because you can't do what you want to with your property. So
Pretty much, yeah.
again, that goes back to what I advise. Amanda, she met me. I was doing a panel, how-to panel at Yomicon, right? And one thing that I forgot to put in there for young creators is you want to make sure that your understanding of your legal rights, is strong. You want to talk to an entertainment lawyer. You want to talk to, entertainment lawyer usually deal with contracts and whatnot in entertainment space. So if you're, I mean, it may cost you what I'm like this. $200 is a lot easier to $200 for a contract is going to take you down $50,000. That's kind of pennies. And I know, people like I don't have any money or whatever, but hey, when you're dealing with this type of stuff, once again, it gets back to, you have to think the terms that you have to look at from the long game standpoint.
Yeah,
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
idea of like exclusive licenses is really important for NAMI COMI to have creators know about. So we even have a little comic that explains these predatory contracts and
That's
everything.
outstanding. That is outstanding.
We really want a place where creators don't have to fear being exploited and they have a place where they feel supported and have ideas that are being listened to as we develop.
Sure. And I think that again, I think that I wouldn't even call it noble. I just think it's the right thing to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other thing is that our my co-founder and CEO, it's an expert in copyright and IP law.
Good.
And so what we want to make sure that happens is that anyone that comes to NAMI COMI, like before, like if they get offered a contract somewhere, they could reach out to us on the Discord or like via email and say, hey, like I publish with you guys, NAMI COMI, but I also publish in say Webtoons
Right.
or Tapas or whatever it is. And I got offered this contract for an original. Like I wanted you to kind of go through it and explain to me like, is this good? Is this bad? What am I looking at here? And like we can kind of already start helping some of those creators to not give away their rights perpetually, basically, because it kind of really is perpetual. Like if they keep renewing the contract every 3 years, then they can't do anything about it. And like the thing that you're mentioning about like the print, sure, like they can offer print, let's a 70-30 split, probably, but that's for the most successful creators out there. Like you have to have so many million views.
The laugh about it is that let's say you decided not to take a print contract with them, right? What I wonder is if they can still hold you exclusive for a contract like that. Because let's say you decide to go to Image Comics, right? And you got the web numbers to prove that Image should print your stuff, right? I wonder if they would try to stop you from doing that. That's interesting. That's something, to think about. I wonder.
I think it depends on the contract. Like for example, if we look at Let's Play does their printing of like literally the 4 volumes has been with Rocket Ship Entertainment, I think it's called.
I know those guys. I know Rocket Ship. Yep.
Yeah, and so it doesn't go under like the Webtoons platform specifically, but I think in order for Mongi or Mongi, I'm not entirely sure if I'm mispronouncing it, in order for her to essentially get Let's Play printed with Rocket Ship Entertainment, I believe that Webtoons had to greenlight that.
And that's
they had to be okay with it, and they still get their cut as well.
Isn't that something?
On it. So there you go. So like, sure, like they have across a lot of their different properties, and it's not just them, it's pretty much everyone else that like, oh, we don't take, like, we don't really, you don't transfer the IP to us, we don't, you're still the owner of your IP. But actually exactly the same thing that happens in Japan. Like, once you're signing away your distribution rights, you literally cannot do anything without breaking the contract.
Sure.
They get to call the shots, and so you're literally just producing and nothing else.
Sure.
And so I think it's really important that people understand that. We don't also think that that should be a thing in this day and age. Like, exclusivity shouldn't have, like, exclusivity just harms the creator,
right?
And the reader.
Oh, absolutely. So basically, what you guys are doing over at NAMI COMI, you're democratizing the distribution model, so to speak.
Very much.
Right. This is it. Yeah. Again, I think it's necessary. I think it's long overdue. And what I also really like is that, even though, it seems like there are a million webcomic distribution channels, I think that there are a couple of them that people know about more than other ones. Like I said, I do my stuff through Comic Fury, right? But having said that, and it's only because I know I got total control over there to a certain extent. But even then, one of my studio mates is going to kill me because he loves Comic Fury immensely. I'm going to also start doing my webcomics through you guys too, because I like what I'm looking at. And let me, if you don't mind, let me show. I'm going to show the web. I'm going to show the platform if you guys don't mind, and I'm going to have you guys give folks a tour if you don't mind. Let me go and where's my show screen? Okay, there you go. Okay, everybody see it?
Yep.
All right. So if you guys don't mind, could you guys let's do a bit of a tour, if you don't mind, through NAMI COMI here. I'm gonna go and hit the branding here first. So that's not whatever. So I'm gonna, all right, so this library feature, or actually, first of all, I really like you guys scroll. Again, everything looks very simple to get to. It's lively, it's colorful, and it's very inviting. That's just a webcomic deal. I mean, it's a web development deal, and I think you guys are doing a great job there. I'm going to start with the library function here. I need to log in. Dang, I ain't got no login.
Yeah. So
okay, that's on me.
So we can do maybe we can do one of my account.
Actually, let me get you. I'll give you guys the option. I'll let you guys show your screens. Is what I'll do. Let me do that. All right, give me just a second, and I'll give you guys control to be able to show your screen, and then that'll probably make life a lot easier for both of us here. All right, go ahead and show your screen so that you can give us a bit of a guided tour.
Absolutely.
It should be at the bottom and say share screen. Yeah.
So we have here, and so you should be able to see this, hopefully.
Yes, definitely. It's loud and clear.
All right, fantastic. So first we have, essentially, I'm also not logged in, it would seem, but I'll log in instantaneously in a bit. So we have like here the headers where like we plan to put anything that's pretty much important. The first header is like how to get started in publishing, and the second header is about our contest. Then we have latest updates here. So in here you have like a title, titles that have recently updated or have had a new chapter. We call them chapters. In other places they call them episodes. It's exactly the same thing.
Sure.
And so you can kind of see like it's reverse order. So like Legends of the Final Warning just updated about 35 minutes ago, but then Elemental Soup was about 2 hours ago. And so we have about, what is this, 3, 6, 9, 12 series here with 12 titles.
Now, do
And we
people
also
have to
have new
put up by
titles.
the? Do people have to upload by the chapter, or can they upload by the page, or is there, or you guys prefer?
You can pretty much do anything.
Okay.
There are some people that like split their chapters into like different pages.
Mhm.
There is people that will do so, and then they'll delete the chapters and like kind of just like put it condense it into one,
Sure.
essentially.
Sure.
And there's some other people that will essentially just upload, say, volume 1, chapter 1, and then they'll have like it at the first couple of days, they'll have like a couple pages, and then as they create the pages, like they add it to the same chapter and it keeps updating.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, you can really just do
For
whatever
new,
you want.
No,
pretty
okay.
much
All right. Good.
it's you have all complete control over your titles and your chapters. So you can pretty much do whatever you feel like. We do the same for new titles. So if you add like your title, basically will show up on the homepage for the first 12 or for the latest 12 titles, essentially. And then we have the NAMI COMI news here, where we basically like share some news on anime, manga, games, light novels, and similar.
Yeah, that makes the experience a lot more. That makes the experience a lot more robust. Just to let you know, I really like that.
Fantastic. It's good to get positive feedback on that. And then we also have, of course, like the how's it called? The footer with all of our social links, and then of course like about us, terms, help page. So this is a Zendesk portal, a help center where you can find some help articles, and then if you have any questions or you need to submit a ticket for support, you can also do so there. And then a link to our apps as well.
Now, in terms of apps, do you guys have a so your app page? You guys have an app for like a phone app and stuff like that, or for NAMI COMI?
We have apps for NAMI COMI, and then it basically gives you a better
reading experience, or
a better reading experience.
Great.
One of the challenges with doing development of a platform and trying to basically just me 1 second. There we go. One of the challenges with doing development of a platform and essentially having both web and mobile in the same place is that for web and like on a website, having desktop and mobile development generally tends to you focus on one or you focus on
absolutely.
Focusing on both tends to be like detrimental. So we try to make our website better on desktop than it would be on mobile, and then our apps tend to be better on mobile than they would be anywhere else. Basically.
Right.
But yeah, going back to this, so like the library basically gives you like your follow title. So basically, whenever there is a new chapter for any of the titles here, I'm following 97 titles. Christ. But yeah, if there's any new titles in here, you basically get notified of a new title, of a new chapter being published. And there's also like reading history as well. So you can basically have like a fairly good idea of like what you read, when you read it. And you can also like click and get back into it as well. You can sort by most recent, you can do sort by oldest as well. And then if you are on the apps, there's a like on your library, there's like a download section where you can basically access the chapters that you have downloaded.
Oh, that's great. That's really good. That's really cool.
Yeah, and then there is no like, this has to be an original or it has to be like, no, there's none of that nonsense. You can pretty much download anything that it's available.
Now, do you guys have a rating system?
Yes, we do.
All right, good.
So let's find something that if we go to the contest real quick and we go into the winners, those titles tend to be rated. Right. So there's a rating system here, which where it's rating and its review is kind of like a mix of both. So you can write a review, and you can give it as many stars or as low stars as you want, and then like review language. We're probably going to do away with that and have like machines kind of like determine what the language is. So there's a bit more simplified for the user. you can grant a review. So you can 100% like just do the rating and like submit.
Right.
It doesn't really require a review, but if you want to grant a review, it's there. This was highly controversial when we introduced it because creators are fairly aware of or fairly sensitive to critique and feedback, especially when it comes down to reviews. I think there have been a number of different situations where something will happen or they will say something and then a bunch of people just go and review
A lot
about
of
them.
politics.
Yeah, and so what we did was when we introduced this, we made sure that there is a system check in place and make sure that there's a monitoring for the user in terms of like with the reviews that they're doing. Too many 1-star reviews, flag. Too many 5 stars review, also flag as well. We want to make sure there's no like botting going on for like 5-star reviews across a bunch of different titles. And we also kind of monitor a little bit the how's it called, the text as well, making sure that there's no like expletives or it's not excessive because we don't want to like police it super hard, but we want to make sure that it's a constructive criticism and it's good and fair.
And speaking of that, do you guys have any age ratings on the material?
Yeah, so a lot of the titles here will be safe. Some titles are mature, and they could be mature because they have certain amount of nudity, or they can be mature because some of the content that they showcase is of a mature it's for a mature audience.
Right, because I know my stuff is mature because of language more so than anything.
Right, and so we generally like it also depends on language as well, like and how heavily it indexes on some of those things. But yeah, you can have titles can be safe for all audiences, or they can be for mature audiences. And that's kind of, you get that on the settings page.
Okay. All right. Good deal.
In here, there would be, because I've already done my age verification, which is essentially just confirming that I am over the age of 18, that toggle is recorded. So it knows when I enabled it, what day, what time, up to the second. And it includes a couple of different information. So make sure that, if anyone comes up and say, this person's claiming over the age of 18, it's like, well, we did ask, they did confirm that they were over the age of 18. So once you do your age verification, the mature content toggle shows up instead. So if I enable this, mature content will show up. If I disable it, then mature content will be filtered out across the website. That also applies to the social tab. So there might be content here. I think I posted something like, all right, here you go. So I posted something that is essentially for mature audiences. And so it's basically asking me to enable mature content to view it. Right. So I have to go back to the settings. I have to like make sure that that's enabled, and then I can save that, and then I can go back, and then it'll basically give me a toggle to show. And speaking of the settings, so like we have color schemes, so you can have light mode, for example, and that's a flashbang. If you are in a dark environment, you can set it to dark mode, or you can set it to the system. Obviously, I'm right now on a Mac, so it'll basically, depending on the hour of the day, it'll have like light mode or dark mode. For image quality, we'll expand this in the future, so it will have like data saver, which is for people that are in countries in which they have meter connections. Or say, for example, you have like a mobile, you're out and about on your mobile, and like you don't want to download like gigs of manga or comics. That would be for you. So there'll be a data saver, there'll be a standard, there'll be a high, and there'll be an original. Original in terms of the quality. So let's say if you uploaded like your original drawings, like 4,000 times 7,000 at 300 DPI, that's what will serve. For some computers that they can't handle it, so
the site is so the site is optimized basically.
Yeah, the site is optimized. We'll optimize this even further, and then you can go into the language. So you have UI language.
That's
There's
great.
2, 4, 6, 7. Yeah, seven languages in total. So 6 other aside from English. That you can set the website to. We're still like in some places, like for example, you can see here the more and the
Mhm.
news and some of the other places like are still not translated, but we're
Sure, sure,
working
sure.
towards like making sure that everything is translated
Just a work in
and
progress,
global.
obviously. Yeah.
Pretty
I
much, yeah.
noticed that Amanda was telling me that you guys are still in a bit of the beta phase. So,
Pretty much, yeah.
for a beta, this thing is really it's really up and moving. You
Yeah,
guys are doing a
Fantastic.
great job, I think.
I believe the site's been up for less than a year still, right?
Yeah, we launched on closed beta on February 6th, and then we launch a month later on open beta. So it'll be March when it becomes a year. So it's been
So we
only
got a
8 months
lot
in
to
that
add
sense.
to the
Right.
site.
Yeah. So in this page, in this titles page, you basically get all the titles.
Mhm.
It's pretty much chronological at the moment. So like the oldest will be on the later pages.
Right,
We're
sure.
going to be working on like a discover page where you can have
Mhm.
like different genres and all that kind of great stuff.
Right.
On the social, I think I'd show you a little bit of this already, but you can basically start posts here or start posts here. You can add media. You have your emojis, your bold, your italics, your strike throughs, and your spoiler. If you want to post something that's a bit more adult oriented, you can mark your post as sensitive, and then this toggle will, change to red. You can obviously change it back to safe, and then you can just basically start your post, and then you have like in everyone's feed where you get literally everyone's post in here.
Mhm.
Right now, because we're still in beta, there's not that many users. You don't have like posts flying off the screen.
Right.
But in the future, it's very likely going to be a possibility. And then on the following, it's pretty much anyone that you're following. So
Right.
if I'm not following that person, then I'm not going to see their post
Right.
on this
Right.
on
Right.
this side.
Right.
For reactions, we have like 6 different reactions. You can
Mhm.
reply. That's basically just comments. You
Sure.
can repost and quote post, pretty much like Twitter works. And then you can also share. So that gives you like a copy
Right. So
link.
this is why we use the term ecosystem then for the most part, right? So
Pretty much, and it's only going to expand further from this. We're only probably around 20% done with the features that we want to implement.
it's funny, I talked to Amanda earlier about Gaia Online, and obviously it didn't do comics and manga, whatever, but it did create an ecosystem. So I think that's pretty smart on you guys.
Yeah, we want to make sure that everyone has something that they kind of like enjoy doing on NAMI COMI, and that they enjoy using it for the most part as well. Like we think that's really important for a platform.
And you're going to create a robust community too, I think.
Yeah,
Sure.
and I think that helps with the sense of community as well. Sorry, Amanda, I cut you off there.
No, I just said for sure. And like even on the Discord, we got a lot of cool people on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the news section is pretty much like you have the latest news, and then you have like anime, manga, novels, games, and like our own news pieces. Like if we were to open like the latest one, you basically have related articles, which are going to be articles in the same category, and then you basically have like a timestamp, and then you have essentially the actual body of the news article,
Sure.
and then at the end, you have tags. So those tags right now are not clickable, but they will be in the future.
Right.
So you can kind of just click on them and pull all the articles related to that news piece, and then you can have comments as well. Obviously, given that we're fairly new and not everyone tends to engage with the articles, there's no comments in most of them, but
Sure.
we're fairly sure that as we grow, like that's going to change, and as also we diversify a little bit our news pieces. For the contest, so we run a monthly contest on NAMI COMI, and essentially the idea there is that if you manage to have people, your work is popular with readers, and then you get over a certain threshold, you can like rank, and then depending on your rank, there's like a couple of different monthly prizes. So like the first one will give you $2,000 in cash, and it offers like localization, It says here in 6 languages right now, but we actually do 8 other languages.
Right.
So we'll do Japanese, Chinese, and Korean, and then we'll also do Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, French, and German.
Right.
And so we translate our the first 3 chapters of that title into those languages. If you are in first place, if you're second place, you get $1,000, and you get to choose 2 languages of those 8. And if you go on to the third place, you get $500, and you get to choose 1 language.
Sure.
If you place between the 4th and the 10th, you get $150. Pretty much as it were. There's a little bit of how the schedule for the contest works, which we're not going to go into the detail there because it's
obviously because you guys are still in
more
working in progress too. So,
but it's pretty much like for the contest, it's pretty much said and done. But like it's a bit more involved, and it tends to confuse people.
Sure.
People like digesting. There's also a comic there, so if you were to search for NAMI Explains, this here has like a couple of different chapters. So like in the first one, it has like Nami's Treasure Trove, which explains a little bit about the contest, and then the second one explains how to publish on NAMI COMI.
Right.
Pretty much. So in here you can kind of see the rankings. Right now we only have like 1 going on, which is the November one. But as of tomorrow there'll be, or as of Friday, sorry, there'll be the December one as well. Going on here right now that we have 2 titles ranking, and there's a bunch of different participating titles, probably around 300 titles participating. Right. And you can see the previous winners.
Right. Oh, that's dope. That works. Yeah.
Cool. And then obviously the publish page explains a little bit more about why creators should publish on NAMI COMI and like how
this is
be different.
This is where this is the next place I want you guys to go. So you beat me there.
Fantastic. Okay.
Right. Though.
Yeah. So
why? Okay, I'm the layman. I'm the guy you're trying to get. So why should I publish with NAMI COMI?
Yeah. So the first thing is that it's your content and it should be your rules. It kind of talks a little bit about like not having the distribution rights sit with someone else. Obviously, that doesn't really apply to the self-published branches of those platforms. But once they get an originals contract, it then does not. It's not their content anymore.
Right.
Sadly, and so we're really the only ecosystem that has creators at its core. A little bit about what that means is that everything that we do has creator feedback into it. Right. There hasn't really been a lot of features that we have implemented on the website where creator feedback has not gone through, and we're talking about like a fair amount of creator feedback. Like they sit on the Discord alongside us, on email sometimes, and they will basically feedback how they think something should work, or like they want a new feature that they want implemented. They will talk to us about it, and they'll say, look, I think this would be pretty cool. Can we make this happen? And they will just start discussing and ideating. And like, we want to make sure that we're developing a platform and an ecosystem that they would like to use. And like that kind of close feedback loop sits at the very core of that. So we also do weekly updates for them. So we let them know what we're working on, why we're working on that, why it's prioritized versus something else. And we always tend to answer their questions as they come along. So sometimes I'll have a question about like, is this coming along? Have you thought about this? And we'll tell them yes, no, or, maybe, or like, what, this is planned for this time. And it's very kind of, it's not like we're just not developing and like they are receiving the product, like they are part of the building process. And same thing for the fans as well. Like, they'll say, oh, like I really like this feature of the reader where you can kind of flip the pages or like they flip the reading direction. I think that's pretty cool. Can we do something like that? And we'll take you through the reader in a little bit as well. But essentially, we're the only ecosystem that has creators at its core. We are also an ecosystem. We don't want to classify ourselves as a platform, although sometimes people don't really know what an ecosystem is. And so we have to have the word platform in there from time to time, just to make sure that people understand what we still are. But yeah, the aim of us is basically from now up until, the year 2100 is that we want to amplify the success that creators can have. We want them to tell us about the stuff that they want to use, and the ways that they want to connect with their fans. And we also don't want to overstep their boundaries. Sure. Like if they say, like, look, we do not want AI. Like AI should never touch our stuff. We're not doing that. It's your content. We want to make sure that you don't feel uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Publishing on NAMI COMI, right? And I think the AI bit has been like a massive point of contention. Less so now than it was before a couple of 6 months ago, I would say.
Oh, it's still there. I'll tell you that, right? In the wider comic sphere, it's definitely there.
Yeah, it's still definitely there. We obviously never thought of generative AI in that sense, but we thought about like how can we use machine learning to better make suggestions to like readers, like based on what you read and that kind of similar stuff. So reasons to publish with us, of course, like we take features and feedback requests into consideration immediately. We let them know yes, no, maybe, like any kind of potential issues. When we say no, why are we saying no? It's, did we say no, but maybe they can convince us into making that a yes, It's kind of making sure that they're part of that. Our audience is incremental. Generally, like any audience that's reading on NAMI COMI doesn't tend to come from like the same places that they're reading in right now. So there's really no downside to it. You're not cannibalizing your audience from like another platform for the most part. You as a creator wouldn't necessarily be building a readership. You're building your own fandom. And what we mean is that, those are, users that are, wearing your merch, and they're basically, they have avatar, like their avatars and banners are like of your characters and your comics, and they kind of live and breathe like your universes.
So do you guys do merch, or are you?
It's in the plans. We're not doing it right now, but it's pretty much the plans for the future. We have a lot of things to basically do. Sure. One of them is downstream rights, but the other bits are essentially, if you follow a creator, if you're engaging with a creator, like, is there emoji packs you can have from that creator's universe, or set of universes and different comics that you could use across the messages and the post on NAMI COMI, right? Is there like banner and avatar frames that you could use that the creator has basically, like if you follow the creator, if you subscribe to a creator, and you're supporting them financially to make sure that they continue to create content, are they giving you something in return? And like you can kind of use that as a virtue signal.
So that's kind of that. So the financial support is going to be an option later on in the in the life of the ecosystem, right?
It already is.
Oh, is it?
So yeah. So for example, if I go to my subscriptions here, there's a number of different creators that I support. We could say like Zodiac's. It's one of my favorite creators. And you basically, if you go to like, this is their organization where it's kind of like their creator profile in a way. And so they have like a couple of different
tiers. And
so I have basically subscribed to this tier, to the middle tier here. And that gives me access to a number of different things, which they are fulfilling over Discord right now. Because we haven't really fully finished on the implementation of the other things that allow a creator to fulfill through NAMI COMI.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
But if someone wanted to set up tiers, and many creators have done, and someone wanted to support them, they absolutely can. And we are like, the next thing that's basically on our list is going to be DMs, which makes this much more easier. Because you can send to DMs to like your subscribers, and you can kind of let them know, okay, like, certain things that I need to fulfill are not doable through NAMI COMI, but give me your Discord username, and I can add you to the server or whatever. Right now, like us as admins, we have to facilitate that kind of conversation. If the creator reaches out to us and say, hey, someone subscribed to me, but I can't fulfill it through NAMI COMI. I have to add them to the Discord. Like, can I get their email address? And we tend to kind of just facilitate that conversation between them and making sure that they can be fulfilled. But yeah, you can 100% do that right now. So yeah. And then the other thing is that you can publish, as you mentioned early on, like you can publish in any format. So that can be long strip or comic or manga. Well, comic or manga is basically like horizontal, paginated formats. You can publish from any country, so we don't really mind where you're from. You can publish in any language as well. We have most of the languages in the world available on the studio, which we'll take you through in a bit. And that's published worldwide for users on iOS, Android, and web. So iOS and Android obviously through our apps, and then web through the platform.
Sure.
Through the website. We kind of say a little bit here about what sets us apart from other platforms. So we don't license, we don't do originals. We think the highest beneficiaries of that are the platforms where the licensors themselves and not the creator.
Right, which we've been talking.
Yeah, exactly. We don't believe in region locking. We think that's a really, really dumb idea. That was done ages ago. It should not happen anymore. We understand that it is a case for printed, purely because of like the place in which you're printing, like ISBN registrations, or things that might get in the way. But in terms of region locking of actual content that is like digital, that's crazy. Like, it's 2023, guys. Like, it's time to move on. We support publication, of course, in any language of your choice, so they can reach new audiences. So let's say that sometimes it happens that a creator will have like not a lot of success in, say, the US, but it turns out like someone in Latin America, or a lot of users in Latin America, are reading their works maybe through more, let's say, gray mediums or legal mediums.
Exactly.
Escalations and the like. Right. And so in those situations, like, the idea is that, okay, if you know that this is happening, you should look at localizing and translating your content and then making it available for them. Then that way they don't need to go to, a third party for that, because they have access to it where you're publishing, and they have access to you as well. I mean, when they're consuming the content, they don't really, like, if they're consuming it on a third party on an escalation website, they're not really going to have access to the creator. They're not going to be like you as the creator might not see those comments that they might make. And so you'll always be a beneficiary when you can actually connect to those users directly, which is our idea. And then obviously NAMI COMI is built around discoverability. Some of those features are not quite ready yet, but they will be ready very, very soon. So we have like multiple tags. We have multiple languages, regardless of which country the reader is from. And then we aim to have a good balance between self-discovery and staff recommendations, which is opposed to the current predominantly editorial systems in place. So that kind of thing that we talked about in the beginning, where, you have to be begging for like a staff recommendation or staff pick or something like that on other platforms, that shouldn't really happen here, because self-discovery will be so much more stronger than it would be in other places.
And that can get kind of political too. So
that as well. Oh, you showcase this user or like this comic, and you didn't showcase me, and so on and so forth. When self-discovery is in place and it's fairly strong, then you don't really have that issue too much. So making money from your comics, so you can continue following your passion. So it's really not about like being extremely bloody rich, but it's more about like making sure that creators have access to a recurring revenue stream. Yeah.
And let me thank you.
Basically say,
let me thank you for that, because again, I try to tell a lot of the younger people that I deal with, and this is just, again, I'm just me. I started out, I've been doing role-playing game illustration for the last 30 years, right? So I've done a lot of smaller companies, Palladium Books, Green Ronin. I've consistently been working, right? And the thing is, I'm back into comic space right now too, right? So the thing is, even there are a ton of people putting out comics these days, right? And a ton of people putting out manga. So at the end of the day, even at its height, your average person wasn't going to get rich off doing comics, you know.
Pretty
and
much.
So that's why I appreciate, you know, you saying what you just said.
I mean, obviously, we think that there's going to be maybe some creators are going to be like really, really successful based on
Sure. But even if what I
something
mean,
that they create.
right? What I mean
But,
is this, not trying to discourage it. Whatever I'm saying is that the thing is, it's all about, you know, it's all about, it's kind of a licensing thing, right? So the actual comic, I mean, there are people. I guess where I'm really going is was basically what you're talking about, following your passion, right? There are some things that a person would do that I kind of laughingly say, I'm glad that people don't know that I would do this for free. You know,
I can see.
right.
Yeah.
And that's where the passion part comes in. But obviously, you know, if you can, you know, cover some costs while you're doing that, absolutely, you know, you definitely want to do that. But I think there, especially in this market that we're in right now, it's a lot of people. I say a lot of people, especially in the manga space. Well, I wouldn't say the manga space, manga and the comic space, that you know, they're trying to get that thing out there. You know, they're trying to get that work out there, and they find out later on as they get better that, you know, what they thought was their magnum opus was just really a part of their experimental period. You know, so I'm glad that there are spaces like that you guys are providing spaces like that and ecosystems, you know, for people to be able to, you know, learn these things, because there are lessons to be learned, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I think 100%. One of the things about the monetization is we want to make sure that creators get to keep as much of their dollars as possible. So we look at ways as to make sure that there's, you know, the fees are low, mostly any kind of payment processing fees. The platform fee right now is pretty much 0%. We don't have any need for it. And then when we do introduce it, it's very likely not going to exceed 10% either. So it's going to be like fairly low. And then the payment processing fees are like a little extra on top. Generally tend to be around 3% at the most. And so we want to make sure that those are kept to a minimum so that creators can get the most.
That's fair, because Image takes 15, I think, for the processing themselves. So that's fair. That's more than fair.
Exactly. And then the other thing is making sure that it's basically recurring. So a lot of people has asked us, oh, you know, why did you implement tipping? And, you know, you should have tipping in there. And it's like the thing about tipping is that it's a mindset thing. So when a user says tipping, tipping is a one-time thing. You read it, you tipped, you went away. But the idea is, or the idea should be that if you really enjoy the creator's content and you want to see more of it, then you should subscribe to them, because at that point they have like a recurring source of you know, income, and they can basically say, okay, like after you get to a certain point, maybe I can quit my day job and, like, you know, work on this maybe full time. I can, you know, maybe I won't have enough to work on this full time, but I'll be able to upgrade my equipment and do better things with it. We know some creators are working with some fairly precarious tablets, like drawing tablets and the likes. And so, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, there's that kind of mindset going into the readers and like the fans. And it's an educational piece. So
absolutely. That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we need to help the creators understand that this is why we're doing that, and we need to also help the fans and the readers understand that this is also why. And Like once everyone understands that this is about like making sure that creators can follow their passion and like, everyone does their best work when they have like the comfort of knowing that they will be able to keep a roof over their heads and there's going to be food on the table, right?
Sure.
Like no one can do their best work in fear. And financial fear is one of the worst things that we have in the 21st century. So
Sure.
So for sure, that's kind of like our idea behind that. We're going to have like other things as well, other methods of support. So we're still basically working out like how that should work and what that's going to be like. But stay tuned on that. We'll share some more details when we have them. But yeah, how to get started then is super quick. So you log in or you sign up, you create an organization, which essentially works as a creator profile. So it's basically like kind of something like a pen name or similar.
Sure.
You create your title, so you add your name, description, genres, tags, etc., and then you publish your title. So that the title gets submitted as a draft. We need to approve it. Why? Because that's going onto the homepage. If someone decides to be a troll and upload some really, really bad image in poor taste, we don't want that going onto the homepage without us knowing about it, right? And then the publishing of the first chapter as well also has to be pre-approved because as well it goes onto the front page. So I'm sure it doesn't get talked about very often, but there's like some group of trolls where like they will upload something like CP, for example, which is in really, really poor taste. It's illegal in like pretty much all over the world, and so that's just not something that should basically make its way onto the platform, let alone the homepage.
Sure, absolutely.
And then after all of that, then the chapter goes live, and then anything subsequent after that basically is at the discretion of the creator. Of course, we have reporting functions all over the website. So, if you wanted to report something, you could like click the three dots and report it. That's pretty much available on titles, chapters, users, orgs, you name it, it's there.
I'm glad you guys got some curation there, definitely.
100%, yeah. I think for us it was important. So moving on to the profile, it's fairly simple, just run-of-the-mill social media profile in a sense. There's things that mostly, if they were set to private, for example, I would only be able to see here. So like everything is set to public. I have really nothing to hide. So
what I like about what you guys are doing, to be honest with you, it's like the best of, right? I see some of the best stuff that I used to like about DeviantArt in here. I see some of the best stuff, that I like about even me doing stuff over at Comic Fury. I see some of the best stuff there. I see some of the best stuff from Gaia. It's just, again, it's like it's you guys have picked all the best faculties from a lot of different platforms to put into your ecosystem, and I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's been a matter of like we're gamers, we're readers, sometimes we're also creators. We do a bunch of different things everywhere, and so do the creators that are on the platform. And so everyone has kind of just pitched in the little things that they find that are super cool that they would like to see here. And so it becomes this kind of like super great thing of, tiny little things that everyone likes to use that when you put them together makes like a great like ecosystem and like a great place to be. And it just really energizes that sense of community and freedom. Typical kind of following follower. So we try to make it a little bit more visual than in other places. So want like the images to talk a little bit more. And then obviously the followers the same thing, and organizations is pretty much the same thing. Subscriptions that kind of run you through that, but essentially you can kind of basically see, when I subscribe, when the next charges are going to be. I can manage that here. I can see which organizations or creators I subscribe to, what the amounts are, if I have anything canceled or pending, no pending, and then this cancel was obviously our testing account. And then obviously transaction history as well, which includes a little bit more information there. Then we have the NAMI COMI studio, the admin panels, the settings I talked you through, and then the helps it's essentially the help center. So latest thing that we introduced was the notifications. So basically, if I get any kind of, if I'm a creator and I get any kind of like followers for the titles, ignore the bug here. That's
Right.
supposed to be an apostrophe.
Right.
But yeah, like if I click on that, for example, it takes me to that title,
Mhm.
and then it basically tells me that the follower number increased. So it went from 26 to 27 in this case. It tells me that there's new chapters in my favorite titles as well. So I follow Elemental Soup, The Legends of the Final Warden, and The Spookiness, and each of them has had a new chapter recently. So I can go in and read them after this call, for example.
Sure.
That'll be absolutely cool. I can also control in here which notifications I get. So for most of these things, there are push notifications.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that we love that we did, that creators apparently had been asking in other platforms that they didn't get, was like, for example, on the titles you manage, like when you get a new comment on your chapter, when you get a new comment on your title, when you get new reactions on your chapter. So, example, when someone likes your chapter, for instance, and when someone follows your titles, like you can get notifications for that.
Sure, that's good.
One of the big pet peeves was that creators that have their titles and chapters in other platforms, when the users were commenting on their titles or on the chapters, unless they went back into those chapters and went through the comments, they wouldn't know whether there was a new comment or not, because they were not receiving notifications.
Sure.
So that was a fairly important one for us. And then inside the NAMI COMI studio, so this is basically like where you manage your content.
Right.
So an organization, as we talked about, is basically pretty much a creator profile, if you will. You can name it. You can add the slug. I can see this because I'm an admin. But generally, users don't have access to this just because it's been confusing for them. But essentially, if I were to put here like Tony, like the slug would just be Tony, because it basically copies like whatever is in here. You can also set like which languages are supported. So, if I'm going to be publishing things in, say, English and Italian, I would select English and Italian here. And we'll do some curation down the line on, being able to find organizations that, post on these languages, for instance. You can add a profile picture. You can add a banner here. We have some presets here you can select from, but you can also upload your own here. Same for the banner. And then adding members and adding links. So right now, these are mostly like admin only things, but they will be making their way onto like the normal user base fairly soon. So if you were to then take like a normal organization, so like let's say that you created your own organization, you have access to a dashboard here. This is going to be populated with graphs and other things. Insights is going to basically give you actual digestible information about what's happening. So it will basically not be just graphs and numbers and things like that can get super confusing for some people. There'll be text. So they'll say something like, oh, your title got more views in the weekend that it got over the week. So that's an insight that can kind of then let you know, okay, I should maybe look into why that is. And then you get into the overviews. Right now, the only thing that we have is the chapter view statistics. So like if we select something like, I think this is English, and we don't compare it to the previous period. And then we could do like the past month. Once that data fetches, basically you'll be able to see the graph of what that looks like. And you can maybe like correlate things like, oh, I was posting on social media about that day. And this is what happened to the views. Obviously, we're using like a fairly slow engine at the moment. That's moving into like
again, like I said, we understand this is still in beta, so
there you go. Like it's literally now like you can see like a lot of the peak in reading has been like around when it got posted, which was November 1st. And then it kind of like dies down, and it has like a higher peak on November 6th, and then it kind of just like throughout the month just it accumulates views. So there's going to be like much more that feeds into this. You can also
a lot more actionable data. is what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you'll have data on like basically where your audience is from, like in terms of country, in terms of like you know, gender and age, for example, if we can if they have filled that data from here essentially, which is on the profile page. So it's not necessarily gender, but it's like my pronouns. So it's basically going to be either like if I have selected any kind of pronouns or not, and if I have provided my age, and then those are kind of like one, they're anonymized in a sense because it's aggregated. You never get to see you know who the person is necessarily unless they kind of outright say, "Oh, hey, it's me." And then the other thing is like we have ranges as well. So although the usefulness of that data in this day and age, I think it's a bit it's up to debate, I guess. But you know where they are from, you know what language they speak, and you know how many of them are essentially going to be viewing your title page, viewing your chapters, and following, and so you have like a bit of an idea of like what is happening with your title, like how are you doing your acquisition, whether you're having retention across like the different chapters.
And that allows you to make some choices, as it relates to, how you're putting that title out. So yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, let's say that you introduce like a fairly interesting character in one of them, and you can kind of basically see, okay, like did that a specific chapter or episode drive up the views, or did it drive up the engagement? Not necessarily. Maybe the views just remained the same, but the engagement was through the roof because people were super conflicted about that character, or like moral standing, or even design sometimes.
Sure.
So having access to that data, I think, is going to be interesting for the creators. Then you can kind of see like the published titles. So obviously this is the organization NAMI COMI, so it has like anything that has related to NAMI. NAMI Explains is essentially a title about like explaining how the NAMI COMI ecosystem works, and then Umidachi is essentially a story about like NAMI herself.
Which is cool, in terms of, I mean, I think it's cool anyway. I think it's cool because, again, it brings you into the ecosystem and lets you know that you guys kind of are fans as too. And I think that's important.
Pretty much. I mean, it gives a bit of a universe building to NAMI herself. And I think one of the core things about like Umidachi, which I think a lot of people were concerned about, was whether it was going to get like better treatment than everything else just because it's part of the platform. And I think like the answer to that is pretty much no.
Oh yeah, obviously.
It's just there, and it gets promoted exactly the same way that everything else gets promoted. In fact, it hasn't even gone on social media yet.
But it's just funny because at the end of it, it's like this, right? I feel this is personally how I feel, right? If you're cooking something and you're not eating your own cooking, that's a problem.
Pretty much, yeah. And so like it also like allows us to kind of very much remain consistent, like very close to like what the creator experience is like.
Sure.
As well. And then we can kind of see like how that's being influenced.
Right.
Too.
Exactly.
I wanted to kind of take you through like the creating a new title and like how does that look? You have titles and descriptions. You have the slug there. You can say whether the original language of the title is. Demographic, that's not something anyone's going to be able to see. This is going to go away. This is basically like Asian magazine demographics, which are not really like, for the markets are not really interesting. But you will be able to see publication year and format. So you can kind of select here. We are going to be supporting novels at some point soon. The content rating that we talked about. So you have all ages, you have mature, and you have restricted. The only time that restricted gets used is whether something was flagged as mature, and the app stores still had an issue with it. So they basically told us, look, we know it's mature, but we don't want to see it we don't want it to be accessible from your app because your app is on the app store. And then we'll say, okay, cool. Then that title will be restricted only to the website. And I think at that point it'll be that. It's basically a balance between like having that title being accessible still somewhere versus the whole app being taken offline.
Sure.
We're very confident that given how we have set up this content rating, that we should not see this ever happening. But never say never, I guess, is the saying. We have the publication status here, so whether something is ongoing, completed, on hiatus, or canceled. We have the intended read behavior. So if it's a comic, it's generally horizontal and it's generally left to right. If it were to be a manga, it generally tends to be right to left. So you can see how like the animation flipped.
Sure, yeah.
And if it's a long strip, then it's literally just vertical and it's always top to bottom because it cannot be bottom to top.
Right.
And so you can then select like a primary genre here. So you have a section of them. Let's say it was a slice of life. So you can see it gets selected here. You can have a secondary genre. So let's say that it was drama, right? And then you can see that the second gets selected here. And then you can basically tick like whatever you see, it fits your title. So it could be, it's an adaptation, it's colored. It also has elements of adventure and maybe it's a bit of sci-fi as well, for example. And it has like themes about like, given it's sci-fi, it has some aliens, maybe has some ninjas as well, it's post-apocalyptic, and it happens, I don't know, in a virtual reality, for instance. And then you have like content warnings. So making sure that whoever is seeing your title, like it's like a bit prepared for what they could encounter in there. So drugs, gambling, gore, etc. External link, this is not really something that you can see as a normal user. So this is basically like staff only for now, but like we have an idea of if there's
like, let's say I want to show some of my work on my DeviantArt. Is that something like the external link will allow me to do? Like, let's say I want to link to my DeviantArt page or something.
If you want to link it from the title page, from that specific title page, sure. I would say like if there was, let's say that you had printed that title and there's an Amazon listing for it, you could put the Amazon.
Okay, all right, I get you. In
there. That's the general idea behind it. Like obviously people will use it however they see fit when we introduce it. But the general idea is like you add something that's relevant to the title itself.
All right. Okay.
And then you have like the covers and you have banners. So this is just basically to make sure that like you're attracting reader attention, that readers can be excited and interested before they start reading.
Sure.
We think that obviously title, synopsis, cover, and banners do most of the selling there.
Sure.
So we heavily encourage people to use this. So you create the draft. Once you create that draft, that will basically go into the drafts here. So you can say like, you can see I was testing title creation there. You can click onto this and then basically like go in here and submit it. And then after you submit that, then it goes on to pending approval here.
Right.
And then after that gets approved by the mods, then that goes into the titles.
Okay.
Obviously you have like full control over titles. So you could like go in here and you could say, okay, like go to the metadata and unpublish it here.
Right.
And then that just basically unpublishes the title. You can unpublish your chapters as well.
Sure.
You have like chapter management here. You can kind of see you have access to pretty much everything when you publish, like when it was last modified, what the status of it is, filtered by language, etc. So you have full control pretty much. And that's kind of the platform as it stands.
And that's the thing. Again, like I said, as I was going through the platform, before when I first talked to Amanda, these are some of the things that kind of struck me, as it relates to, this ecosystem, in contrast to some of the other ones that I've seen, and I'm glad that we can call it an ecosystem instead of a platform. I think I'm going to stick with that personally. All right. So in closing, where ultimately do you guys want to take NAMI COMI, in the context of the wider world of online publishing? What's your goal? I guess I guess the better question is, what are some of your goals? Because I know there's probably more than one.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that anyone that is starting to create a manga or a comic or a visual novel or a graphic novel or even a novel itself has a place that they can upload that is that is essentially free from, or as free as possible from, external hands. Like,
Sure.
the idea of NAMI COMI is that, any your property on NAMI COMI is like, it's yours. It's whatever you create in there, it belongs to you. We offer the space, but we don't really like enforce anything on it, or we try not to. Obviously, there's has to be like, we cannot allow child pornography.
Well, you got to curate to a certain extent, but right.
Yeah, exactly. But the idea is that, like, we have seen so many comic creators say things like, we need to go back to like the 2000s when we had like individual websites and we don't really think that that should be a thing that comic creators should be doing this day and age. Like, we have cybersecurity concerns. There is, data concerns. Like, things are not as easy as maybe they were back in those days. And like,
And
it's
the internet's
easy.
cluttered too. The internet's super cluttered right now.
Yeah, it's very cluttered. The other thing is like, how are they going to get distribution? Right? Like, when you create your property, like, you were solely responsible for funneling traffic through that property. And like, that's super, super difficult. Like, I don't think creators begin to even see whether. So like, the idea is that they always have this kind of safe space that they can publish to. And like, we don't, like, if you want to publish in NAMI COMI, you want to publish on Webtoons, you want to publish on Tapas and anywhere else, be my guest. Like, that's absolutely fine. There is no exclusivity. We don't force you to do anything. Like, but the safe space is always there. And like, the idea is that you want to publish in NAMI COMI because, like, the features that are provided to you there are just better than anywhere else that you can get.
And they're growing.
Because it was essentially created by creators and by fans.
For creators, right. Okay.
And by creators for creators.
Right, yeah. I think that's the main thing that sums it up.
Yeah, pretty much. By creators for creators. So there's always a safe space for them, and there's growth.
Right.
Like, and
you guys listen to the creators, obviously, and that's the main thing too.
Yeah. Right? Pretty much. Yeah. Self-discovery is super strong, and things are going super well. And we help you with print, and we help you with merch. And ideally, if there's like animation projects that we also help you make sure that they don't take advantage of you, that like that the terms are fair, that like that you have a seat at the table, you're a producer of those projects. And that's kind of the idea. Like, we want to kind of, like, mostly things generally start as a novel, and then they move on to like a comic, and from there you get a list of downstream rights. We want to make sure that they have like a solid foundation and that they can grow and prosper, basically.
Now, let me ask this question. You guys said that you have that your CEO has a background in entertainment law, right? I mean, will you guys ever do like using NAMI to do kind of like illustrated seminars on any of that stuff?
I think, I mean, one of the ideas is that we would have workshops and creator kind of, I would call it like the NAMI COMI Academy or something like that, where like, we invite creators and we invite people to do the talks, and we basically say, okay, like, these are strong voices in the industry. This is what, you're here to learn about X, Y, or Z. And like, the idea is that they like, we provide those resources. They might also, I'm fairly sure that we're going to be starting doing some guides as well. And start getting like the educational pieces out there. And
the educational part is super important. I don't think, again, I met Amanda doing that. I've been doing that for years. It's funny. I think I might have brought this up in the panel. I grew up basically with nothing. So I said that whenever I got to a point in my life, I was going to give back. And, I wasn't, and I wasn't going to charge when I did it. And so that's where I'm at in my life right now. So education is super important, I think. And I don't think there's enough of it, and I think that a lot of times, people are so busy they're so focused on making money that they forget that you have to go back and water that grass, for future generations. So yeah, definitely, I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, we want to make sure that there's a strong set of helping, like, those creators are being helped by like the creators that have already been successful, that have been there and done it, and then they themselves in the future will then, it's kind of like the baton has been passed on, and
right, and it's also a form of us other creators paying it forward too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So yeah, it's we have so many things to kind of look forward to, and I think the future is like super bright for us.
All right, so is there anything you guys want to say in closing that you didn't get a chance to say during the interview?
Thanks everyone for the support so far. Really, it's been crazy. We didn't expect so much support in 2023. We just launched, and we've had over 300 titles. Everyone has been like super positive, and yeah, I mean, I think that's fantastic.
Right.
Can't really wait to do more for the community, and just see it grow, and just be a less hostile place for creators and fans.
Right. Exactly. Amanda, how about you yourself?
Yeah, I also want to say it's really fun working for NAMI COMI, and there's a lot more to look forward to because I see a lot of stuff behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I want to say thank you for the extras comics that I got because I won that from the raffle.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I actually, one of the like guest artists featured in the the end of the comic, they're actually on NAMI COMI. Like I recognize one of them.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. I think that's what. I have to let my studio mate Jeff. I have to let Jeff know that there's a NAMI COMI connection there.
Yeah. There's a lot to look forward to.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
No, thank you guys again. I probably couldn't have never gotten a better inaugural program from anybody. And again. I'm glad you guys took time out to, let us know, to let us know about NAMI COMI. And also, I just appreciate the energy that you guys have in terms of being positive for the community and being able to give the community something that, not only that it needs, that it needs something that a lot of people don't know that they need. So thank you so much. And you guys are welcome. Again, to come on, we got other internet platforms that we're probably going to have you guys on in the future too. Not this long because I want to know everything. I'm nosy, but we're definitely going to have you guys on to talk a little bit more. In a more of a encapsulated environment about NAMI COMI, and also give us updates. About some of the things that you guys are doing in some other places that you're taking it. So again, thank you, Tony. Thank you, Amanda. This has been the inaugural episode of In the Basement with Mark Dudley. So thank you guys again. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you too.
Thanks.
Keep in contact.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.